Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Welcome back for another edition of, well, this one's a special edition. I decided this time that I would bring in my Jennifer and we would talk about the things that we have accomplished within our relationship, and also this helps you as a bit of evidence of what I've been talking about, and we really want this to be a part of how you think about and a bit of a modeling on what you can expect to be and how you can present yourself to be when you start to do the work. And we want to talk about 3 things that we have really dug down deep and gotten to, well, through trial and error and through a lot of love, a lot of self-exploration individually, and then coming together with that. So we're going to talk about 3 things that we feel have been really, what would you say, honey, paramount in our relationship. Impactful, and have helped us love and appreciate not only ourselves individually, but this relationship. So we're going to talk about communication, the safe container we've built for ourselves, and then the boundaries, both individually and as a couple. So I'll start with communication. We'll start with communication. Communication for us is big. It's not only communicating back and forth, it's really getting to know how you are and how you communicate as a person. And when you're able to communicate your feelings effectively, specifically, your wife, your spouse, your partner starts to understand how you feel and what you're talking about.
And communication for me didn't come easy. And in fact, Jesse taught me a lot about how to communicate more effectively. I grew up in a family that we didn't communicate. We shouted at each other, and so it was a lot different for me to learn how to communicate effectively. And what Jesse has done for me is hold space, and that brings us to that safe container and knowing that your feelings are okay, and learning to trust that it's part of the process.
Mm-hmm. I like the way you put that, honey. The communication element for me, what Jennifer has taught me, that when I've been able to talk about my feelings with her feelings, I have been able to gauge for one, how well I've been communicating with you. If it hasn't come across the way I thought it would come across, we both try and find another way to do it.
Yes.
And that didn't come about overnight. It wasn't a light switch. It took some figuring out, didn't it?
It really did.
And it took some feelings. And what Jennifer's done for me is she's been able to help me gauge how I communicate through her own communication to me. And that comes by the words that she's been able to use based on how she's been able to summarize what I'm saying. So, oh, you mean this. Or, oh, I think what you mean is this. This is how I perceive what you're saying.
Absolutely, and that's where listening is a really important part of communication.
And sometimes we got to remind ourselves, hey, like,
absolutely.
Hold on, I'm not done yet, but tactfully, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with that, Jennifer alluded to the safe container just moments ago, and the safe container for us is, it's big, like it's so big. It's like this space that we can get in, and we can feel like we can have our feelings. We take responsibility for our feelings, but at the same time, I'm going to talk about how I feel about what you've said. Or I'm going to talk about what I have gathered as this frustrates me today. This is what so-and-so said, but I know that this is my reaction to what they've said or how they've reacted. And when we get to talk about, how that's triggered us, and then once we've heard one another, we get to, it's like, okay, the question, comfort or solutions? This is a game changer for you as well. Asking if you want comfort or solutions, and sometimes we just don't know, right? Like sometimes we got to explore it. Okay, well, back up. I just want to be heard right now, and that's okay, right? So that's okay.
Yes,
it's okay to explore that. So the safe container is something that I think we could say is you're not going to get it overnight. Keep working at it. Because we keep working at it. We're always looking to be, as I say, be perfecter than the perfect we're already being. And just to continue building on that. You build the trust, you build the respect, and then you build the love on top of that, right?
Absolutely. And it is about understanding each other and trying to separate what is yours versus what is mine. And sometimes we don't know whose is what.
Yeah.
And it kind of can get icky a little bit, but then we figure that out
too. Yeah, it's a little bit of a breakdown, meltdown, but then it's met with, okay, all right, this is mine, that's yours, okay, that's what that is. And that's a perfect segue for our the third attribute that we want to talk about that's helped us really hone our relationship, which is boundaries. And boundaries, that word gets tossed around like a volleyball or kicked around like a soccer ball sometimes, but it gives a whole new meaning to what it is once you've been able to figure out what it is, eh?
Well, and for me, I either had very rigid boundaries with a lot of things where nobody was getting anywhere, or I had no boundaries, porous boundaries. And so I remember Jesse was like, "You've crossed a boundary," and I'm like, "Fuck you, I've crossed a boundary." Like,
it happens.
What the hell is a boundary?
It happens.
So I had to really discover what that was for me, because it was that awareness of this need for a healthy boundary and how to express that in a way that made sense to you, for it to even make sense to me too. And so that was a big challenge to figure that out.
So then that comes back to how we communicate to one another, and then that comes back to honoring that safe container, and then within that you reaffirm your boundaries again, right? It's a continual thing, but it's rewarding. So we've been able to figure out. I've been able to really figure out where my boundaries are when it comes to discussing certain things, and I've been really able to discern what is my feelings versus Jennifer's versus somebody else's. And when I can feel what is my boundaries and own them, or excuse me, what my feelings are and own them, then I'm able to establish what my boundaries are versus hers, versus yours.
Absolutely. And sometimes our boundaries cross, and we can't find where one begins and one ends, or they overlap in a way that, someone's getting frustrated or hurt. But we kind of, then if that's the case, we have to try to understand what it is about the other person's boundary that is crossing your own boundary, and really sit in that feeling and go, okay, well, what is that? And usually it comes back to yourself to go, okay, maybe my boundary was a little bit too much, or it was
too rigid, and I expected way too much, and maybe I need to come back. And that's not to betray yourself dishonoring yourself. It's just reestablishing where they are and what makes sense, and if it's realistic, right? Sometimes it might be it might not be a realistic expectation of each other.
Absolutely.
So then we got to do it again. The cat's going to tell us otherwise. But we, in that as well, it's been able to really, I believe, for me, I've been able to establish what is me time. And I've been talking about in many of these videos about carving out your own time for yourself so that you fill your cup and then you have a little bit left over, but then you can support one another. What does me time look like for you? How's that happen?
Well, in me time, I used to be really, really good at it. I set aside an hour each day in the morning that I got up before everyone else, and I would journal, I would meditate, I would work out. It would be whatever I ended up doing. I'd sit and drink my coffee and look at the horizon, watch the sun come up, and it was a really sacred time for me. Then, you know, as work got in the way and things happened, I've noticed that my own me time has eroded, and I have to reestablish what that looks like, because with blended families, it has changed what it used to be as a single mom.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was very different. And so we are constantly figuring out what that looks like, but it is essential. I notice a difference from when I do it to when I don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and do you notice a difference in yourself when you haven't taken it versus when you have? Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm, you know, I have a shorter fuse if I don't take my me time.
That goes both ways. I'm just as guilty with that. If I don't take my me time, I get owly.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so this is a bit of an inside look. This is a bit of a look on how we have worked tirelessly and hard, and really what we're showing to you is perseverance, and that there is what you're doing right now, you're doing it right. Mm-hmm. And persevere, keep going with it, keep working at it, because you can have what we have worked hard at having. But you must commit to doing it. You must commit first to doing it, and you must commit to, when things don't happen the way you think they're going to happen, to keep going with it, to just be consistent. And something that Matt Schaefer says is it's CCIA, consistent, committed, imperfect action. You've just got to commit to keep doing it no matter what it looks like. Because eventually you're going to strike the right balance, and eventually it's going to look good to you. And from that, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much for tuning in. I look forward to all your comments. I look forward to your feedback, as well as your constructive criticism. So let us know what you think of this. I think this is going to go off really well. I think the audience is going to love this, and we'll talk to you soon. We'll talk to you in the next one. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.